So, welcome back to the show. I am sitting down with the man, the myth, the legend himself, St. Luke's own super athlete, John Graham. How are you, John?
I'm great, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful.
Good to see.
Is it a little toasty in here?
It is. It is. I think you should take that off a little bit. Yeah, you're looking pretty buff these days.
Thank you.
Looking pretty jacked.
It's difficult, but fitness is my life, so I try to stick with things.
I kind of got that impression.
So, real quick, tell us what you do for St. Luke's.
So my title is I'm a Senior Network Administrator for Fitness and Sports Performance. But essentially, I'll do anything in the community that involves working from youth all the way into the seniors, from highly fit individuals, athletes, down to the chronic disease population, and helping them to enhance their physical well-being through fitness and wellness.
Have you always been a fitness guy?
Well, I started out as an athlete in my younger days and kind of got interested in fitness from there. And I think as I've gotten older, it's become even more of a passion for me. So I'd say yes. Pretty much since I was 13 years old, I started lifting weights and haven't stopped since. And now I'm 60. So 47 years later, I'm still lifting weights.
Hang on one second. I want to take this stupid thing off.
I like it, though. You can keep it on if you want.
I feel better now that I shedded some.
Yeah, you look good.
You
still look jacked. So that's
thank
good.
you. I appreciate that. He's a super nice guy. So you were saying you were an athlete. What kind of sports did you play?
So in high school, I was very lucky in that I was able to play football, wrestle, run track, and then also I played baseball in the summertime. So I actually did 4 sports when I was in high school. I guess I didn't like going home at night or after school.
I was going to say, did you actually go to school, or were you just training the entire time?
No, I was always at school, but usually stayed afterwards. So I didn't get home most nights until after dinner, which was pretty cool. And then in college, I was pretty fortunate in that I was able to play Division I college football. So that was kind of a nice transition in my life and something I was very honored to have the opportunity to do.
D1, who'd you play for?
University of Pittsburgh.
Oh, no kidding. What position?
Wide receiver.
No kidding.
Yeah, usually I was on my back a lot when the big guys hit me, but it was fun.
So let's see. You already mentioned that you're about 60 years old. So Pittsburgh.
So Dan Marino was our quarterback.
That's what I thought. Get out of here.
He was our quarterback for 3 of my 4 years.
How was that?
It was good, unless you weren't paying attention when the ball was coming your way, and then you got hit very hard with the football.
Was he a good guy or kind of?
Yeah, very good guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate when I was in college. I guess egos were considered to be lower back then. We were a pretty laid-back group and pretty fun group, and definitely had a lot of fun. I played with 10 Hall of Famers, so between college and the pros. So it was nice to be part of an era where University of Pittsburgh football was very successful. We went to 4 major bowl games during my career, so we got lucky, and it was good.
Wow,
so
what a ride. Do you miss it?
No. I mean, I think the one thing I've learned about health and wellness and fitness is you kind of keep making progressions in your life, and you get to the next level and you find out what your next plan is. So when I was done playing, I was done playing. And I enjoyed it and had a great time with it, and made a lot of great friends and people. But then you move on to the next stage of your life.
So talk to me a little bit about your passion for fitness. I mean, obviously, you were an athlete most of your life. Was it just kind of a natural progression to move into the fitness realm?
Yeah, I think initially I got into fitness with the intent that it was going to be a career. And I got lucky in the fact it became more of a vocation. So I go to work every day and love doing what I do. My boss is always telling me I work way too many hours, and I tell him the first day I work, I'll let him know. So, the nice thing about fitness from my perspective is you get to do something every day where whether you're working with an athlete or someone who has a chronic disease or disability or someone who's just trying to lose weight to be healthier, you're doing something every day where you go home at night knowing you made a difference. And not many people get to have that kind of a job. So I get to go home every night knowing that whoever I came across in a day, I probably helped them to get better at their life. Absolutely.
It's got to feel pretty good knowing that you help people on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, I get to go to work and have fun.
Absolutely. Who would you say you liked working with the most so far?
I don't think there's anybody I could ever say that one individual was just the absolute best person I ever worked with, other than Mr. Steve Andrews, of course.
Gotcha.
But I think everybody that I've had along the way, I've found a reason to enjoy working with them, and it's become an enjoyable experience. I think the one thing that we have to think about when you're working is that those individuals that you're helping, whether they seem passionate about it as much as you are or not as much as you are, you're making a difference with them and you're helping them to get better. I think the most beneficial part about this job is I have people now that I helped when they were in high school who are in their 40s. So, to have them come back and tell you that what you did for them back when they were in high school made a difference, that means a lot. So I don't really want to say that there's any one person I've enjoyed working with more than others. I've had major celebrities that I've worked with, certainly over the years. But I've also had, I always tell people that the number one person I enjoy working with the most on any given team is the guy who probably will never play or the girl who will never play. Just seeing them get better and seeing them improve. And sometimes they become players and become very successful and become superstars on the team. But just to see them improve is really a great thing. And that started early on in my career because when I first came to Allentown, I worked with a gentleman by the name of John Schreiner, who's a baseball coach at Emmaus. And John said to me, every year we're going to let you make one pick of the kids who make the team, and you can pick anybody you want. So it doesn't have to be anybody who really deserves to be on the team. You can pick anybody you want. So I always picked the one kid who I thought worked the hardest. And sometimes it wasn't one of the better players.
Sure.
So I think he got me started thinking that way about working with kids and working with teams. And the people I like working with in the gym aren't the most fit, aren't the most healthy people. They're generally the ones who need the most support from us. And the one thing I try to tell anybody in this industry is don't look for the person who's going to be there every day. Look for the person who isn't going to be there every day unless you help them.
Right.
So we want to make the connection to the person who, if we're not helping them, isn't going to come back.
See, I love talking to folks like yourself, like super positive, super motivated. You remind me very much of one of my best friends who he wound up having a career in the Marine Corps, but he's one of those guys, and you're very much like him, where I always say to him, his gift is he motivates the unmotivated. And that's a very special gift because, let's be honest, fitness is not the easiest thing to stick with.
Right.
And getting into that a little bit more, do you have any advice for, say, a beginner who comes in? A lot of the times you get these folks who have this New Year's resolution, this year I'm going to get in shape, and then they get a gym membership and they take one foot inside the gym, and you walk inside a gym and sometimes that can be a little daunting. You see all these pieces of equipment and super fit people, and people are clanging and banging, and you're just like, I need to get out of here. So what advice can you give to some of our more beginner listeners on their journey for fitness?
Well, I think the most important thing is to find a location, facility, whether it's at home or at a gym, where you're going to be most comfortable and you're going to be happy going there. I think, as the joke goes, you got to find your happy place. I think that you want to find a location or a facility where you're going to feel comfortable being there. And most importantly, that you're going to have a support system that you're going to enjoy being with. So whether that's a friend, a family member, or someone who is working at the facility to be your support system, that's important. So you want to find that person you can connect with when you go there. I think the other thing is to start at a level that's comfortable for you. So don't look for the most intense, most difficult training workouts. I know a lot of these podcasts that came out, or a lot of these videos that came out early on in the industry, they have crazy names to them, and I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to make them feel bad for that, but because they certainly served a purpose as well. But if the workout that you're doing is so painful that you can't get out of bed the next day, then that's not the right workout for you.
Because you lose your motivation to do it.
Right. And you're not going to want to come back the next day. So I think the most important thing, and the one thing I tell everybody every day, because they say, you work out every day, how do you do it? I say, well, I do something that I know I can recover from one day to the next. So you got to find that balance of what you can do that will help. It's one thing I tell people when it comes to our metabolic classes is don't do a metabolic class that requires you to jump and explode and do all those other things if you're just starting out. You want to start with a metabolic class where your impact level is going to be low so that you're going to recover and do well from one day to the next.
I see. Now, how do you stay motivated? It's very easy to do something, say, for 2 weeks or a month where you're super jazzed about it, and then kind of life gets in the way, and then before you know it, you've lost everything that you've done. So how does one stay on that path?
So the best thing, the most critical thing is to find a time that works best for you. So if that time of the day that works best for you is early in the morning, then get to the gym early in the morning. I've started this process now where I get to the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're not even open yet, and I'm in the gym working out. And a lot of people think that's crazy. But for me, it works well because it doesn't interfere with anything else I need to do during the day. So I know that time is my time, and I can keep that time, and it's not going to interfere with my life. I tell people, if you have families and you're committed to your family, you have young families, make sure you make that time where it's not going to interfere with your family life, because you don't want to miss out on watching your children grow, and you don't want to miss out on things that are going to be important in your life going forward. So I think it's really important that they find a time that works best in their schedule. And if the other thing is, if it works better for you to do it at home, one of the things that we're working really hard at St. Luke's, but also in the general scope, is making videos that you can do in the comforts of your own home with simple things like whether you have a set of dumbbells or you have a set of gallon jug containers that you can use. We're going to make it simple for you to be able to do the workouts. And I think, I don't like to say COVID did anything positive, but it did force us to think a little bit more out of the box when it came to fitness. So I think that's where I think a lot of people can really do well, is to use exercising at home as well as exercising in a gym. So maybe you go to the gym a couple days a week, but use a couple days a week to do some things at home as well.
So talk to me a little bit about, we'll use me as an example. So
Right.
When I was 20 years old, I could go to the gym for an hour and a half a day. I had no responsibilities. You know what I mean? You go to work, you go to the gym, you work out an hour and a half, you're in the best shape of your life. Now I'm 40-some years old. I've got 2 small children. I've got a wife. I've got responsibilities at home. I have my own business to run. And I'm not trying to be one of those guys that's making an excuse to say that I don't have time. But is there any advice that you can give to folks that have a little bit more of a time crunch and have things changed in the world of fitness? Do you need to spend an hour and a half at the gym anymore to still get a decent workout? Or is there a way to modify it to make it work with your life? For example, my kids, they go to school by 9 a.m. I drop them off. I'm in my office doing whatever work I need to do till 3:40. I pick them up. I'm doing the kid thing. I'm either taking them to karate or theater or whatever. We come home. We do dinner. We do baths. We do homework. By the time they go to bed, then I'm back in the chair, either editing or doing something else till maybe 12 to 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I'm back up again at 6:30 to do the whole day all over again. Right. How does one incorporate a fitness lifestyle in such a hectic daily routine?
So metabolic fitness has really been the answer to that question. Metabolic fitness is great because you can do, even if you want to do 10-minute blocks of time in your day, where you take 3 or 4 of those 10-minute blocks and do metabolic fitness. So metabolic fitness involves using a variety of exercise and activities that you can do in succession with limited rest periods in between. And the value of doing metabolic fitness is enabling your body to increase your metabolic rate for a prolonged period of time post-exercise. So by doing metabolic fitness, what we're doing is we're elevating the heart rate, but we're keeping it up there while you're doing it, and you're keeping muscle activity going throughout the entire workout. So you may be doing 10 minutes of exercise, but your caloric expenditure is as great in 10 minutes as it would be in an hour if you were taking longer rest periods in between your workouts. So we look at the quality of the workout versus the quantity of the workout at this point. So when I say quality, what I'm saying is that we're looking at, if I can do 10 exercises in 10 minutes, that's better than doing 10 exercises in 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes.
Interesting.
Which is a tremendous change, because when I first came into the fitness industry, you do 3 sets of bench, and it might take you 15 minutes to do 3 sets of bench because you were taking long rest periods. And even when I look at today's strength and conditioning programs that they do for athletes, I see the prolonged period of rest in between sets is like 2 to 3 minutes. Well, if you're playing a sport, you're not resting 2 to 3 minutes in a sport, especially if you're playing a sport like soccer or field hockey.
Sure.
And even football. In today's football world, football is a very fast-paced sport now, because they're running these high-speed offenses where they're taking very short periods in between and they're getting on the ball right away. They're not huddling up in between each play like they used to. We're doing everything at a high rate of speed. We're calling the plays from the bench, and people are signaling, with signs from the sidelines, and people are on the ball in 30 seconds as opposed to taking a minute to a minute and a half in between plays.
So can you give me an example of like a metabolic workout for 10 minutes?
Yeah, so for a perfect example is you start out with doing jumping jacks, you turn around and do squats, then you do bench presses, and then you do speed squats, and then you do lunges, and then you do rows. So those are like 6 different exercises right there, but we can actually combine it into 10 different exercises or 12 different exercises really quickly for people.
And you do like one exercise for a minute, like you have like a little timer that goes off and then you're moving on to the next one, or how does it all work?
Well, that's a great question because we really have to base it on what we have available to us. So for example, if I'm using 30-second blocks of time, if I can use it on a watch, which is what we'll do tomorrow morning in our metabolic classes, we do them for 50-second blocks.
Okay.
So we'll literally do each station for 50 seconds, and we'll have 30 stations, or tomorrow we're going to have 33 stations. So we're doing each station for 50 seconds, and I'm giving them 10 seconds rest to move from one station to the next. So they got to do 33 different movement stations with 10-second rest in between, and they're doing for 50 seconds. So add up the time. It's a minute, essentially, that they're doing 33 different exercises. So it's 33 minutes in time. But when you add up all the recovery time in between or movement between stations and things, it ends up being about a 45-minute workout. But they've done 33 exercises in 45 minutes. That's a full workout.
Absolutely. Now, can you break that up? So like you said, anybody's got 10 minutes.
Right.
Can you break it up over time? So if I did a 10-minute block, say I drop the kids off at 9 a.m., the minute I come back, I do my 10-minute block. Then I work for the day, pick them up, do another 10-minute block. Like how many blocks is one needed of 10 minutes for an efficient workout for the day?
So when someone tells me they got 10 minutes 3 times a day, what I'll try to do with them is I'll put a calisthenic type program in with it. So we might pick 5 basic calisthenic movements that they're going to do in between each exercise set. So for example, if I'm saying we're going to do legs in the morning, we're going to do upper body in the afternoon. So we'll say lower body morning, upper body afternoon, core in the evening. So we're always going to do core in the evening. So what I would say to them is, okay, we're going to start off with jumping jacks, then we're going to do squats, and then we're going to do lunges, then we're going to do speed squats, and then we're going to do, let's say, a step up as a third exercise, and we're going to combine that with burpees, and then we'll do push-ups, and we'll do that with something else. So we'll just kind of keep moving back and forth with lower body movements and core exercises, or in this case, we're going to use metabolic exercises in the morning. The afternoon, we're going to do an upper body routine. So we might do bench presses, rows, shoulder presses, bicep curls, tricep exercises, and we'll combine that with those metabolic exercises that I described to you. So we usually pick 4 to 5 basic metabolic exercises and just rotate them in cycles. And then in the evening, we're going to do our planks with our crunches and our back strengthening exercises and combine that with those metabolic exercises. So now we've done 10 minutes of movement where our metabolism's up, our heart rate's up, and we're getting a combination of strength training with metabolic training. So we're burning fat, increasing lean body weight.
I love this idea. Now, is this something that you would do daily, every other day?
Daily. So I tell people you can do metabolic training every single day. So a lot of theories are I'm going to work out every other day because I need to give my muscles 48 hours recovery.
Right.
Well, when you're doing metabolic training, you're not using maximal weights. So you don't need to give that 48-hour period to recover. You can go right back and do a chest exercise on the next day because you're only using submaximal workloads.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what ends up happening is, from a muscle definition standpoint and a muscle development standpoint, you actually look you get those results a lot faster where you get the muscle definition you want and the muscle development you want because you're doing it more often.
I'm super excited about this. I'm not going to lie to you. So talk to me a little bit about recovery. When I was a kid, recovery was not a huge focus. Now I feel like it's all the rage and it really helps with your development. Can you talk to me a little bit about the science of recovery and why it's so important?
So recovery is brought about in many different ways nowadays. And, the old days it was massage, it was ice, it was the basic things that you could do. Now we have massage tools, we have these percussion tools out there that 45 different manufacturers are making nowadays.
Oh, like the gun?
The guns,
yeah.
So, and then we have, you even have sleeves you can put on your legs now that connect to pumps that they can actually pump, massages against your legs. So there's so many crazy tools out there that you can use nowadays. But, some of the most basic things are static stretching is still one of the best things you can do for your muscles for recovery. I don't recommend they do it pre-workout because pre-workout you don't want to decrease the muscle efficiency, which is what stretching will do. It'll decrease strength and power production by 20% if you stretch pre-workout. So you always want to save stretching for post-workout where your muscles need to recover.
So no stretching at all before?
So we do movement preparation and dynamic warm-ups now before you work out. So what we're going to do is things like hand walks, knee hug lunges. So you're moving and stretching simultaneously.
Okay.
So by doing that, that enables the muscles to increase the eccentric contraction as well as the concentric contraction against tension. So that allows the muscle to warm up a little bit better and a little more efficiency. And when I tell people, it's like taking a car from 0 to 60. So what you do is you start out with movement preparations where you're actually doing basic activities and basic movements that are real slow but real strong in movement patterns. So a knee hug lunge or a hand walk would be that kind of movement pattern. Then you go to high knees, butt kicks, and heel ups and power skips and more dynamic movements to kind of bring the body up to the next level. And then ultimately you go into your workout from there. So we don't start from ground zero and jump into a fast-paced workout. We take that ground zero and we start with a warm-up. So if I'm teaching a metabolic class, we're doing jumping jacks, we're doing speed squats, we're doing burpees, we're doing mountain climbers, we're doing push-ups, we're doing things with body weight to get ourselves warmed up prior to starting, and we're either marching or jogging in place while we're doing those things. So we might jog for 30 seconds and do 30 seconds of jumping jacks, then jog for 30 seconds and do 30 seconds of speed squats. So we're getting the body to warm up and get the blood flow going, making the muscles more pliable to be able to do the activities we're going to do during the workout.
How long would you say a typical warm-up period is before you're, because again, if we're talking about time, if we're saying a 10-minute block, but we still need to warm up before that, what is the actual time that we're talking?
So if we're talking about a 10-minute block of time, it's not a long duration. So if I'm starting with a 10-minute, if I got 10 minutes to work out, I'm going to jog in place for 30 seconds.
Okay.
That's going to be
that's
and
sufficient?
then I'm going to do some jumping jacks for 30 seconds and I'm ready to go.
Okay.
So 1 minute in, I'm going to start doing things like, tempo squats, or I'm going to use weighted squats or do weighted step ups and things along that line. So I'm just going to use a basic minute warm up to get my body going because I'm only going for 10 minutes. Now, if I have to exercise for an hour, I'm going to increase that warm up time to 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. This is amazing. This is so different from even 20 years ago.
Yep. And I've watched it all go.
Yeah,
so,
that's got to be.
I mean, things change. We used to do lat pull downs behind our neck. Everybody thought that was a great idea. Now we realize that causes shoulder injuries and cervical neck injuries. So now we're pulling to the front. So a lot of things have changed in the last, 20, 30 years that enabled us to make exercise more efficient, but also more beneficial with less potential of injury. The one thing everybody says to me is, what's your number one goal when you're training athletes? Like, are you trying to make them faster? Are you trying to make them stronger? I said, I'm just trying to keep them on the field.
Sure.
Or keep them out there playing their sport.
Sure.
So my number one goal is always injury prevention. And I've been blessed to work with Sue Butz-Staven, who's the winningest high school coach in the country, has over 1,000 wins in her career. And Sue and I have been together 28 years now, so longer than most marriages, unfortunately. And the one thing that I always tell people about working with Sue is our number one goal has always been she just lets her girls out there in the field. She'll coach them up to be great field hockey players, and her and her coaching staff will do all the tremendous work. My only goal for her is just make sure her bodies are out there and they're playing. And the number of ACL injuries in her group has far surpassed the volume of increased potential for injuries than anybody's. In other words, her girls don't get hurt. they're out there playing every week. And I think we've had 2 or 3 ACL injuries in 28 years. That's unheard of in girls athletics. So, and part of it is Sue's commitment to year-round training for her team, making sure that we're going 6 days a week in the summertime to prepare them. So that, they're training with me 3 days a week in the weight room and doing speed training and agility. But the other 3 days, they're out there on the track running and doing skill development. So those girls are preventing injury by repetitive training on a consistent basis. And the problem that I try to get most parents to understand is you can't train for a sport that requires you to be out there 6 days a week by doing something 3 days a week. Doesn't work that way.
Right.
Your body's not ready and you're not potentially developed enough. And if we needed evidence of that, look at what happened with all of our professional athletes during COVID. They didn't get the preparation time that they traditionally got. So now all of a sudden, a year ago when we were watching our professional sports, athletes were injured all the time.
Right.
So if you don't prepare properly, if you don't prepare for the volume of work that you're going to have to do when you go play sports, then you're going to get hurt. Well, I say the same thing when it comes to fitness and wellness and health. We know that if we're following the science, it takes 30 minutes at least 5 days a week in order to maintain optimal health. Well, so if I'm saying go to the gym every other day, I'm not hitting 30 minutes. Right. And then what am I doing when I'm at the gym? We have people, we're working with our program, with our residents right now at the hospital, trying to help them. And the one thing I always say to them is when I watch your residents come in the gym sometimes, they're sitting in front of their phone the whole time because they're getting calls.
Right.
So they're not actually working out. They're in the gym. They're just not doing anything in the gym.
Right.
So I would rather you come to the gym and get something done productively. And that's where these metabolic classes really came in handy, because once we start a metabolic class, there is no rest time. You don't have rest in between sets, so you can't go check your phone because there's no time to do that.
It's go time.
It's 45 minutes of go time.
Right.
So that's the focus and that's the energy. And even when we work with our high school kids now, we're telling them the same thing. I set up programs with our high school athletes now where literally at every station there has to be 3 movement patterns, and there's 3 kids in that group, so everybody's moving all the time. You can't walk into one of our training sessions without watching every kid move.
Right. Now, with this metabolics, can you work out essentially 7 days a week?
I do. And I'm old, so.
You're a super athlete too. So, but I mean, like, in regards with
answer
recovery.
The question, yes, we have a lot of clients that actually do it. And some of our employees at St. Luke's have really ingrained themselves in this program, and they're doing it 7 days a week. And we have employees that are doing 7 days a week that have hip replacements and joint replacements and have had a lot of health concerns in their past, and now we got them exercising 7 days a week. The goal is they have to exercise in such a way that they're not working at maximal intensity every single workout.
I see.
A lot of people ask me when athletes come into their 40s and stuff, like the Tom Brady, how did he pull it off? Well, Tom Brady prepared himself to be ready to play. The problem was 30, 40 years ago, a lot of people were using steroids and things like that in sports that they probably shouldn't have been using. Problem is steroids don't help you to recover. So they were getting injured because they were getting their bodies at the super high level of effort, but they couldn't maintain it, and they couldn't stay at that because they couldn't recover from one day to the next.
So talk to me a little bit about, I'll go back to a person like myself who was an athlete early on, and then kind of the dad bod set in, and I'm now getting aches and pains in places that I didn't even realize existed. But I still, in my mind, I still think that I'm 20. So every once in a while when I do get the motivation to work out, I'm going back in there and I'm doing older stuff that usually winds up getting me hurt, and then I stop, and then the whole process starts all over again. Or I'll take a hiking trip. Like I just went to Glacier National Park this summer, and I was super excited for it. And we start going, and I had all sorts of knee issues, and it wasn't anything, like I didn't tear anything. I thought I did. It was so bad, like especially on the downhills. Like I was leaning heavily on my poles. It was a mess, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've really injured myself. I came back, I rested for a few days. My knees are fine. So obviously my legs are just so weak that my knees took the brunt of that. So how does a person like myself who wants to get back into fitness, how do you do it? How do you shake that 20-year-old mentality that you're not going guns a-blazing straight out of the gate, but you can slowly build up to a healthy lifestyle?
So, in that situation that you just described, if I was working with you, the first thing I'd say is, what are your goals? So we have to understand what your goals are. So if your goals are, hey, I want to go out and hiking, as Ken Sidler, our senior VP, is a big hiker,
Yep.
loves to go out hiking. And
Matter of fact, we're supposed to go hike Mount Washington this summer,
Right.
so I need to be ready to go with Ken.
Yeah, and Ken's tough. So, so if I'm looking at that situation and I'm a big tail on the trail person, I'm going to do that 165 mile, goal for myself every single year, then I have to prepare to do that. So one of the key things that I tell people, and this includes our runners that do half marathons and runners that want to ultimately do a marathon. So Dr. Claros, you were talking about
Yep.
at the beginning, wants to do a marathon. So how am I going to prevent that injury from occurring in the first place? So I have to do things that are going to help you to get stronger and better when it comes to doing those movement patterns. So I would have spent a lot of time working on your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your calf muscles, and making sure that you were developing those muscle groups appropriately so that when you're walking down those steep hills, the absorption isn't on the joint, the absorption is on the muscle tissue. So that's what we have to do, is focus our activity program around that. So just like with our athletes, we're putting strength training and conditioning programs together that are really designed around the sport that they play and the position they play in that particular sport. Okay. We also have to do the same thing for our general population. So I have to know, what is your goal in life? For a lot of people, grandparents, I happen to be one now, so I'm happy to say
Congratulations.
that. If I want to lift my 1.5-year-old granddaughter off my lap, I don't want to put her on the couch next to me and hope she doesn't roll off the couch when I put her down, or if she's 6 months or 6 weeks at that point. So how do I stand up and hold my grandchild against me? Well, then we're going to have them hold weights in their hands and do box squats, because we know a chair is 18 inches or a couch is 18 inches off the ground. So we're going to make them do box squats off an 18-inch box, holding weights in their hand that are comparable to what they're going to have to do when they have to pick up their grandchild. So we're going to strengthen them in a functional way that's going to help them to develop the muscles that they need to be able to do those activities, and by the same token, prevent themselves from getting injured. The beneficial effect on top of that is they look better too.
Sure. So if I were to ask you, what are the top 5 exercises you would suggest to somebody who, because not everybody wants to climb mountains or run marathons, right, but they, like you just described, they've got grandkids, or even me, I've got kids, and I have to be actually very careful. My back is so weak. If I even lift them the wrong way, I'm going to throw myself out of whack for 2 weeks, and then of course I can't play with them the way that I want to. So
right,
I'm looking to just increase my general fitness overall. If you had the top 5 exercises that you would suggest people do, what would they be?
So it would be a body weight or weighted chair squat, where you're touching an 18-inch surface, a box or a chair, would be the first one. A step up using at least an 8-inch mechanism, whether it be a step in your house or a box in a gym. And the reason we do step ups is because in our lifetime we have to climb steps. We have to go up and down steps or do things along that line. So those would be 2 of the primary exercises I would want to incorporate in for the lower body. And then when it comes to the upper body, I would want to have them do things like either push-ups on an inclined surface, because it obviously makes it easier the more inclined it becomes. Have them do something along those lines. Have them do arm exercises, whether it be lifting soup cans or dumbbells in front of their bodies, so that they're getting stronger in their arms as well, so they can lift things up as they do it. And then the most critical one would be some kind of a core exercise. So I'm going to give you 6, because I like to give you 2 for upper, 2 for lower, and 2 for core. So if I had to pick 2 core exercises, a front plank would be really important to do, because obviously that's going to strengthen not only your abdominal muscles, the ones we see, which are the rectus abdominis, but more importantly, the transverse abdominis, which are those pillar muscles in the inner core of your body that give you that prevention against back injuries and abdominal injuries and things along that line, but are also the connecting link between your upper and lower extremity. So if you don't strengthen those muscles, your upper body and lower body don't connect well.
Got it.
So going up and down that mountain, if your transverse abdominis isn't in good shape, the problem is your upper extremity may lean too far forward going down the mountain. So now you're putting more stress on your knee, because your knee's going past your ankles, because your center of gravity is off. So that would be an important exercise that I would want to work on as well. And then I would either have you do a Superman or what we like to call a bird dog, which is an opposite arm and leg lift. So Superman, where you lay on your stomach and just lift your arms and legs off the ground at the same time and hold it. Like a lot of people say, well, when I do a plank or a Superman, am I supposed to do it repetitively or am I supposed to hold it? I say you want to hold it because what you want to do is get used to contracting and controlling those core muscles when you're doing exercises and activities. So when I'm working with athletes, I'm trying to strengthen their core in a way that I'm not having to do thousands of crunches. I'd rather they did front planks because when you play sport, you contract your core to make a movement or to hit someone or to do something simultaneously. It's not necessarily driven by movements. Now, if we throw on top of it, like I want to be a better golfer, now all of a sudden we're going to start throwing medicine balls in. We're going to do chops and things along that line that are consistent with transverse plane movements that golfers need to use.
How about knee trouble? For those of us that have run marathons when they probably shouldn't have, any exercises that you would say are beneficial for knee trouble?
So the most important one, obviously, is we want to teach you to do exercises or activities that are pain-free when you do them. So if a chair squat isn't working for you, then we're going to raise the surface until you can get to a chair squat. So we'll actually have you maybe use 24-inch heights as opposed to 18-inch heights to get your muscles stronger in your quads and your hip flexors. And then we can do band exercises with people. So we use these things called mini bands where we have them do exercises that'll strengthen their quads, their glutes, their hamstrings, and their abductors and adductors on their inner and outer thigh areas.
We talked a lot about training over the first segment. Let's talk about what you and St. Luke's are doing for the kids.
Sure. Well, that's a great question because as many of you know, St. Luke's Sports Medicine Division has done an incredible job in this community of providing athletic training services and a lot of the injury treatment programs and services through our orthopedic practices. And I think we have, we almost have a monopoly, I think, in the community at this point. I think we're at 90% of the schools are St. Luke's affiliated sports medicine related schools.
Wow.
Which is a tremendous service because the athletes that are playing sports are getting treated by the best of the best every time they go out there. So they're getting treated like they're college athletes and being treated at the highest level. And on top of that, we've put together sports performance programs that mirror what you do with sports medicine. So the idea was we wanted to make sure that we gave the athletes the prevention as well as the treatment. But where I think we're going as an organization now and our sports medicine initiatives and our fitness and sports performance division initiatives are to not only focus on the athletic population, but to focus on the youth population. Because the number one epidemic in this country is not COVID, it's youth obesity. So youth obesity is a huge problem in this country right now. And it's a problem because technology has taken us in a direction where we don't go home after school, throw our junk in the house and turn around and run outside and wait for mom and dad to blow the whistle or ring the bell or do whatever we did when we were kids to come home.
Right.
We sit in the house and we get locked into computerized things. Madden football has replaced going out and playing flag football with your buddies.
Right.
Or, as we stupid kids did, we played tackle football with no equipment on.
Exactly.
So I think the key thing that St. Luke's is really focusing its attention on right now is how do we serve that population that's not the athlete population? How do we serve that youth population? And we've developed a lot of great initiatives between Tail on the Trail, getting kids out walking, getting kids being active. But there's new initiatives that our sports medicine and our fitness divisions are developing now related to education and exercise and activity. And we're developing relationships with groups like Blue Mountain, where we're actually going out and doing skiing and snow tubing and different types of activities and things. So the goal now is to take that non-athletic population and build them into fitness initiatives as well. Because what we develop as a youth is what we transitions into adulthood. And there's 3 phases of our lifetime where we develop our fat cell numbers. So I can have a third of the fat cell numbers as somebody else, which means I can probably eat more foods that I shouldn't eat than someone who has a higher concentration of fat cells. So a lot of times when you're working with kids that are obese, it's not necessarily because they're not active or they're not trying to be active or they're eating the wrong foods all the time. They're probably not eating any worse than anybody else that's their age. But because their fat cell concentration is at the level it's at, it makes it very challenging for them to offset the changes that happen with their body when it comes to fat metabolism and retention of body fat. So what we're doing now is we're trying to get them involved in activities and programs where they can be engaged in fitness, engaged in participation, and wanting to do it. And, it all started 30 years ago with BMI scores becoming ingrained in schools. And in some regards, it was a good thing, but in a lot of regards, it was a bad thing, because now all of a sudden everybody's, are you saying my kid's fat? Was the first reaction, because I was heavily involved early on in that process with some school districts. And the answer was no, we're not saying that your kid's fat. What we're saying is if your kid maintains this BMI level for the next 30, 40 years of their life, they're going to be at risk for developing lifestyle-related diseases. And we don't want to see your kid have a shortened lifespan and an unhealthy lifespan because they didn't have the proper education and tooling now to help them to get better. So the schools went to having milk as opposed to soda in the machines, and everybody did all the nice new creative dietary things. But the bottom line of the situation still came back to one basic thing. Are we moving?
Yeah, I was going to say movement, right?
So, you can eat all the best foods in the world, but if you don't move, you're still not going to gain muscle mass, and you're still not going to increase your metabolism. So how do we get those kids moving? And a lot of people said to me, well, what are you going to do with that kid who's really morbidly obese and can't go running around the gym? And, everybody started with these heart rate monitors and saying, we're going to put polar monitors on everybody, and we're going to measure heart rate responses during classes, and then we're going to base it on that. And I said, look, what's the one thing that a larger kid can do that you can't do as a smaller kid? And everybody looked at me and said, I don't know. Well, they're always going to be stronger. So if I put them in a weight room and I put them on a leg press machine as an example, they're going to outlift everybody else in the room because they have more muscle mass than everybody else because they have more weight. So consequently, give them activities that they can be successful at early on, which is weight training and making them lift weights and do stronger. I mean, the strongest guys on the NFL football teams are always the linemen, right?
Right.
They're not the backs. They're not the quarterbacks or receivers. They're the linemen. So what we're trying to do is make sure that they're stronger and more getting really ingrained in participating in fitness. And then everything else kind of takes its toll from there. So I start to get stronger. I start to see improvements in my fitness. I start to see muscles. Now all of a sudden I'm going to start running more, and I'm going to start doing other activities that I wouldn't have ever done had I had all that excess body weight and no muscle development to offset it.
So is there too early to get a child in the gym? Because I remember growing up as a kid, I remember hearing, if you lift too early, you're going to stunt your growth. I'm sure that's probably a myth, but
yeah.
Anybody can lift it at this point?
So we start kids as young as 7 in our fitness centers.
Okay.
So you could actually bring kids in fitness. We teach them movement more than anything because they're not going to develop muscles at 7 years of age. They haven't hit puberty yet.
Okay.
So testosterone production is really critical for developing muscles, whether you're male or female.
Got it.
So they have to have that hormonal production in order to start building muscle mass. But what we can do is make their muscles more efficient and make them more effective at doing movement patterns so that when they do start to develop muscle tissue, they've already learned the movements on how to do it correctly.
Got it.
So we teach movement at the early ages, but we also teach activity because by teaching activity, what are you doing? You're increasing metabolism, you're increasing caloric expenditure, but you're increasing not only caloric expenditure during exercise, but post-metabolic effects that you're going to get by exercising are that your metabolism remains elevated 7 to 24 hours post-exercise. So that's why when everybody says, well, why do you want people to exercise every day? Because I don't want your metabolism ever to slow down.
Right.
If you take that day's rest, it's like a roller coaster ride. My metabolism goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it comes down. Well, guess what? You don't change your nutritional habits based on whether or not you worked out that day. You're going to eat pretty much the same regardless.
Right.
So we don't want that day where you're burning more calories than you're taking in, offset by the day where you burn less calories than you're taking in. So we try to make it so that everything stays the same and just kind of rolls right along the whole time.
Interesting. Tips or tricks on, so I'm sure there's plenty of parents out there that just can't motivate their kids to do anything. Now I know it's easy to say, we'll just get them in the weight room. What if you can't get them in the weight room? Are there any tips or tricks that you can lend to parents out there to help get their kids moving, to help start that cycle? Because I agree with you. Once once they get a little taste of success, everything else is going to flow downhill from there.
Right.
So how do you get them moving?
So, the simplest thing, and everybody always laughs at this one, is I don't want your dog to be morbidly obese either. So the simplest thing is say, hey, every night after dinner's over, we're all going out for a family walk and we're going to talk.
Okay.
And leave the cell phones at home and leave all the electronic devices at home. That's the connection point that, we used to have 2 generations ago that maybe we don't have anymore. Whereas parents and kids go out and spend time together and do things where they actually take walks and use the Tail on the Trail that St. Luke's has, or do activities outside as a family where they go out and do things and do activity. Get away from the food, the dinner table, get away from the electronic devices and actually go out and move and do some things movement-wise. And it is, despite the fact that everybody thinks it's funny when I say, take your dog for a walk, look at the number of people that have electronic fences nowadays versus the number of people with electronic fences 30 years ago.
Right.
So it's easy to just let our dog open the door and let the dog go outside because it's cold in Allentown in February and January than it is to take them for a walk. But you want to take them for a walk because you're getting the benefit and they're getting the benefit simultaneously. So I always tell people, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your dog.
Well, and walking just in general has huge benefits. I don't think people realize that even just 30 minutes a day of walking helps stimulate your brain, not only for weight loss and things like that, but I mean, just helping you be more creative. Just a 30-minute walk will pull that out of you.
Right. Well, and it also increases your endorphins. It makes you feel better. You get fresh air by doing that. A lot of people think when we're out running at 8-degree temperatures and, we're outside running, why aren't we just doing it on a treadmill? Well, part of it is you want to get out and enjoy the atmosphere in the air. Even if it's 8 degrees out, you're still enjoying being outside and you're still seeing nature and you're seeing the activities and things like that.
I was going to say, just a change of scenery. Instead of running like a lab rat, you can actually get to see trees whip by you and actually see your progression moving forward.
Right.
So, all right, let's switch gears a little bit here. I heard through the grapevine that you used to be in the aerobic scene back in the 80s.
Yeah, I guess all of us who were in the fitness industry back in the 80s actually did that. So
talk to me a little bit about that, because when I think of aerobics, I think of the spandex and the leg warmers and the mullets and the long earrings. I mean, was that your scene, or was it a little bit different?
It was a little bit different, but we made this workout called the wellness workout at a healthcare system that I worked for back in the 80s. And the goal was that we were just trying to get people to move. And the hospital had this idea that, because I had come from the football arena and the macho arena of the world and in some people's eyes, that if I did this exercise video where we were doing exercise like aerobics and things like that, that it would get males excited about doing aerobic exercise too.
So talk to me about catching passes from Dan Marino going to the aerobic world. I'm sure you kind of caught a little bit of flack for that, sure?
Oh, not a little bit, a lot of flack. And I still catch it because sometimes people find those videos and, put them up in arenas where I don't want them being put up. But I think the most important thing that happened out of that was it actually was this onslaught or start of metabolic training, because what we started to realize was, and I did this first video with a lady who's still in the wellness and fitness industry today. Her name's Kathy Iorio. And Kathy and I, Kathy would do all the dance type movements. And if you watch the video that we did, she's going one way and I'm going the other way because I couldn't stick with her movement patterns. So, which kind of made it effective because it made people realize it's okay to look silly. You don't have to step on the steps perfectly, and you don't have to, step to the side perfectly and things like that. It's okay to look silly as long as you're moving when you're looking silly and you're doing things in a movement-oriented fashion. And then what I did was I taught the strength part of that workout. So what we got people to understand was that if you do the aerobics with the strength, that you're going to get a mutual benefit because you're not only going to get muscle development, but you're also going to burn fat. So that was kind of the start of the whole process in people's eyes. And we actually had a class every Friday right before happy hour where we'd get people from the hospital to come in and do this class with us, and then they'd all go across the street to this happy hour place. But the idea was that it became kind of a camaraderie thing, and they did it every week. So they started doing it on Friday nights, and then it became a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing, and then it became an everyday thing for these people.
Well, this kind of goes full circle with our conversation. It goes back to fitness is always evolving and changing. So you're still using some of that aerobics in stuff that you do now, but it's just called something different. And,
Right.
It's amazing to me. It's very, very much like science, where things change all the time and you have to constantly evolve with it, where what worked back then, we look back at it and we're like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. But that's the information that we knew at the time.
Correct.
So,
well, and it's, as I said, it keeps springboarding you forward to what's the next thing. What we're doing today probably will change in 5 years, and we'll be doing something completely different than what we're doing today from an exercise perspective. Metabolic exercise is good today, and we're actually, I'm actually contributing to a book. I'm co-authoring a book with a friend of mine from Colorado Springs, Mike Barnes. We're doing it for Human Kinetics on metabolic training and the value of metabolic training. And we're making it to the general population. So it's not built towards the athletic population. It's built towards, and Mike was a strength and conditioning coach with the San Francisco 49ers when Steve Young was their quarterback and they won the Super Bowl.
oh, okay.
So, Mike and I have a different mindset today than we had years ago. Like, Mike's into triathlons and biking and things along that line now, whereas back then he was more into strength and power development, and speed and agility development. So, we're trying to take the populations that we've traditionally worked with in our careers and evolving them into, okay, where do I go from here? I'm no longer that 25-year-old athlete. I'm now a 45 or 50-year-old adult who, as to use your terminology, has a dad bod.
Sure.
How do I get myself back to where I want to be? So, and we've all seen that. To be honest with you, when I was 50, I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And the benefit of metabolic training and learning how to increase metabolisms is what enabled me to figure out how to transition other people by transitioning myself. It was a nice transition for me. I didn't want to be big and bulky anymore. I realized that I'd rather be smaller in size and not look big and necessary, but look fit.
Sure.
So, and I think that's where our culture is going. But the difference was, I was working for a different healthcare system at the time that we started this whole process. But what I said was, we were sitting in a room with a wellness committee, and I was looking around the room, and they were talking about BMI scores. And they were saying how we have to fix the BMI scores at our healthcare institution because all of us have to make sure that people get their BMIs between 18.9 and 25. And I looked around the room, and I'm thinking, there isn't anybody in this room that's got a BMI below 25, including me.
I was going to say, people talk about BMI all the time, but it's ridiculously hard to hit that range.
Right. So how do we get to that range, and how do we transition people to that range? So my goal with what we've been doing the last 10 years in professional world is, how do we get people to drop their BMI scores down to levels where they're safer? Not necessarily they're below 25, but are they between 25 and 30? And how do we get them back to a more healthy level, realizing that the more weight they carry, the more likely they are to developing lifestyle-related diseases? So now it's becoming a focus of transitioning body types from, I want to be big and bulky, to I want to be lean and fit.
Well, whatever it is, whether it's aerobics or plyometrics or whatever, it's clearly working. So I'm excited to see what you come up with next. So before I let you go, we always do a rapid fire section here on the show. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions, and you're just going to rattle them off for me right away.
Okay.
Favorite movie?
Well, it's always Rocky. So
good choice. One of mine as well. Favorite song to work out to?
I would say it's an AC/DC song. Any of the AC/DC songs are great, but Thunderstruck's probably the best.
Another classic. Favorite food?
Well, everybody's going to laugh, but I like canned chicken with cottage cheese and applesauce. So
Wow,
a lot of people think that's kind of crazy. And
that's a new one.
As my boss always says, are you eating your cat food again tonight?
Oh, my goodness. How often do you eat that?
Pretty much every night. It's kind of like I get home and I put barbecue sauce on it and stuff, and it's just something I've gotten into and liked over the years.
To each their own, I guess. Favorite guilty pleasure food?
Pizza.
Good choice.
Always has been pizza, and always probably will be pizza.
Plain, or do you like meat lovers? What are we talking here?
I just like plain.
Okay.
But I like the thin and crispy ones.
Okay.
So,
favorite athletic accomplishment, either yours or someone else's?
It's just such a hard thing. I think it goes back to what I talked to you about earlier is, when I was finishing my college football career, it wasn't the accomplishments on the field, but it was the things off the field that made our administrative assistant want me to want a picture of me for his wall so that he could remember that, good guys are in this sport. And that was kind of like, it made me realize that no matter what you do the rest of your life, always make sure you're paying it forward. So I think I don't know if that's an athletic accomplishment as much as it's a personal accomplishment, but it made me realize that no matter what I do the rest of my life, I got to make sure that whatever I'm doing it in a way that's helping other people to improve their lives.
Love it. Favorite exercise?
Well, I think it's always going to be anything that's upper body related. I always love doing chest exercises, upper back exercises, arm exercises.
You seem to me to be a burpee guy.
Burpees is probably one of my least favorites.
See, I thought because everybody hates burpees, and I'm like, well, this guy's motivated. He probably loves to do burpees, or at least loves to watch other people do burpees.
I love the value of burpees, and I love the benefit, and we do them all the time in classes I teach. I love the value of them because it's total body movement. It involves using your total body, and it gives you a tremendous cardiovascular benefit. A lot of people don't realize that, but it gets your heart rate up and it holds your heart rate up for prolonged periods of time post-exercise. So I'd say along with mountain climbers, burpees is probably one of the better ones to put in anybody's workout.
Change the name to throw-ups. That's what they should be called. They're violent. Least favorite exercise, I think we just said it, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say probably if I had to pick one, it's barbell squats.
Okay.
Just because it's one of the most beneficial ones you can do. But it's my least favorite because it's definitely the most painful.
Are you a big deadlift guy? I know tons of people keep telling me, especially now that I'm older, like, oh, you got to deadlift. I'm like, okay, why? What is so great about the deadlift?
Well, the benefit of the deadlift is, is to go back to the funny commercials that you see some fitness, I pick things up and I put things down kind of mentality. The benefit of a deadlift is it's a very functional movement when it comes to life because we pick things up and we move them and things like that. It also teaches us to do it correctly because we have to use the proper posture and the correct alignment. Since the hex bars have been developed, I think it makes doing deadlifts a lot safer and a lot more beneficial for anybody to do them. So we use hex bars now, which are the bars that you stand in the middle of and grab the handles on the sides, and the handles are actually elevated so you're not bending down into a position where you're going to put your back in a compromising position or you're going to put your knees in a compromising position. So I personally do deadlifts every week. Yeah. I like them. I think they're great for people, but it's a matter of teaching people how to do them correctly.
Got it. Anything else you want to toss out to our listeners today?
No, I think, I'm thankful that I had this great opportunity to talk with you today and look forward to us continuing our relationship in the fitness world and what we're doing. St. Luke's has been a great place to work. And the one thing I think, I always tell people this, and I don't say it because it's a company line. I say it because it's a true line. I think we as an institution are focusing on really helping people improve the quality of their life and their health. And we're doing it from a preventative side. A lot of times when people say, your hospital has all these fitness centers and you have all this commitment to preventative health, is it really against the company mission to do that? Because aren't you taking care of sick people? And I said, our goal, there's always going to be a lot of sick people, but our goal is to help improve people's quality of life through healthcare. So I think what St. Luke's has done and what St. Luke's has made a commitment to, and it goes from our senior leadership on down into our marketing division. People like Steve Andrews have been my friend from day one, when I first got here, because right away we started talking about doing sports stuff and doing fitness stuff. So I think the really great, cool part about being involved in a healthcare system that's committed to improving people's health is they give you the tools and the resources you need to make a difference in the community. So it's not just a matter of working with athletes, it's a matter of working with the community as a large thing. And there's no greater reward than helping some senior citizen get their health back.
Or a kid for that matter.
Right. So, getting people to get their health back and seeing people improve their health and well-being and see them feel better about themselves. And more importantly, just enjoy going to the gym. Because, anytime somebody comes into the gym who's never been in the gym, they're always nervous and they're always afraid. And is this the place for me? And I always tell our staff, at the end of every tour that you give someone the first time they come to the gym, you got to ask them one quick question. And they said, what is it? And I said, do you want to join today? Can I get you signed up today? Because if you don't ask that question, their thought process is, I don't belong here.
Right.
Because you didn't ask me to join.
Right.
You don't want me to join your gym. So I always tell people the most important thing that we got to ask every single person that walks through our doors is, how can I get you started? How can I get you going on your fitness program? And what do you need from me to keep you going? Because that's the most important thing.
So what do you and your staff do differently than any other gym where it's not super sales pitchy, and how people can feel included in that gym? Because again, I go back to the beginning, some people walk into that gym and it's super overwhelming. So what is different about St. Luke's gyms than anywhere else?
So it starts with the screening and the assessment process. So just like our physicians and everybody else in our practices go through this intensive process of evaluating someone's health, we do the same thing in our gyms. So when you come in, we evaluate your medical and exercise history. So we understand, what have you been through from a medical side of things? What types of injuries have you had? What types of health concerns have you had in your past? And then we talk about your fitness goals and objectives. So what are my goals and objectives? And it's not uncommon to have someone say, I want to run a marathon,
right.
And they've never run a step.
Right.
So how do you help them get from point A to point B, and then point C and point D and so forth? How do you get them to help get to the next level? And then the next part of it is we do an assessment. So we actually assess where you're at. So we know what you're starting at percentage of body fat wise, what your BMI scores are, what your cardiovascular scores are, what your strength and endurance scores are from a muscular side, what your flexibility level is. And then we write a program for you. And it's not just we give you one program and this is what you do for the next 30 years of your life. Right. I still talk to guys who tell me they're doing the same workout they did 10 years ago. Well, you're doing the wrong thing, because your program's got to evolve with you. And that's the most important thing, is how do we get your program to evolve with you?
Well, not only that, but like we've been talking about this whole time, fitness changes over time. So
Right.
You're going to have to evolve with it.
Right. Now, 10 years ago, we'd all been doing 3 sets of 10 and taking
Right.
2-minute rests between.
Right.
Now we're doing 33 exercises in 40 minutes, and we're constantly moving and constantly doing things. And at the end of the class, everybody's laying on the floor going, wow, that was a hell of a workout. But while you're doing it, you're not thinking about that, because you're just doing it. So, what I always tell people is the biggest benefit of metabolic exercise, it doesn't give you a chance to think about what you're doing to yourself. So, you're working so hard, you're just going like gangbusters for 45 minutes, and 45 minutes goes by so quick because you're moving the whole time. You don't realize what you just did until it's all done. And then you look and you say, man, I just burned 560 calories and did this fun thing, and I feel great now, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to enjoy my day because I know I did everything I needed to do from an exercise perspective. So it's not being in the gym for an hour and a half or 3 hours. It's being in the gym for half an hour to 30, 45 minutes of consistent movement, consistent activity.
So John, if people got motivated from our conversation and they want to start taking classes at St. Luke's gyms, how do they contact you? How does one get started?
So the simplest thing is you can go right on our St. Luke's website and reach out to our gyms. We're actually right on the web pages, or you can call us at 484-426-2540, and we can certainly get you set up that way. I think the most important thing is you can visit one of our centers, and we have 5 of them in the community now, so you can come visit us. If you're not close to one of our facilities and you just need some guidance on how to get started on an exercise program, the one key thing that our marketing and our media division has done at our network is we've put together a lot of exercise videos now. We have a lot of different resources that we can send you that you can do in the comforts of your own home, and you can work out in an area where it's convenient. And, one of the things that we've been doing in the community now is we're really helping a lot of the diabetic population with what we're doing, and we're making strong inroads in the inner cities and doing some really cool stuff with getting people involved in exercise. Well, the one thing that I figured out early on was we were having these classes where people would come to Sacred Heart Hospital to work out. Well, at 5 o'clock at night, most of those people had families, kids, dinner time, kids going to sports. They couldn't come at 5 o'clock at night. So we started making exercise videos for them, which, Gail and Kim and I just did our version yesterday or Tuesday. We actually put our newest version together. So we're trying to create movement activities where people can log on to a St. Luke's website and get information from St. Luke's, and then get started with exercise from St. Luke's. And then ironically, what a lot of people don't realize is what comes out of that is then they start to say, well, I want to get to the gym 1 or 2 days a week in addition to doing this class.
Sure.
So now, everybody says, why aren't you shooting yourself in the foot? Because they're not going to join your gym. They're going to do it at home. Well, no, we find it works the opposite way. They come to our gyms now because they see what we're doing, and they want to add more to what they're already doing.
Give them a taste, and the rest will follow suit.
Yeah,
Love
it's a lifestyle commitment and passion, and I appreciate the compliment. But really, this has been my privilege to do this at St. Luke's. It's like I said, I never go to work and think I'm going to go through a 16-hour day today and I'm going to be miserable. I go to work every day realizing I'm going to have a lot of fun, and I look at everything on my calendar and I go, man, this is going to be cool. Like doing this today, this was kind of cool. So,
well, we appreciate you coming in today. John, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.